And good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and we are continuing our examination of the connection of the dots between Isaiah 27, Isaiah 59, Isaiah 65 and 66, Romans 11, and Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following. Let me remind you of what my argument is, okay? It's very simple. I think it's very powerful. The coming of the Lord of Romans chapter 11, 25 to 27 would be in fulfillment of Isaiah 27 and Isaiah 59. By the way, very few commentators doubt that. But the coming of the Lord for the salvation of Israel in Romans chapter 11 is the coming of the Lord of Matthew 25, 31 and following, which is the second coming. Okay? Therefore, the coming of the Lord for the salvation of Israel would be in fulfillment of Isaiah 27 and Isaiah 59. But the coming of the Lord of Isaiah 27 and Isaiah 59 would be at the coming of the Lord in judgment of Israel for shedding innocent blood. But wait a minute. Jesus said the time of the avenging of the blood of all the martyrs would be in his coming of the Lord, coming in judgment of Israel in AD 70. Therefore, the second coming of Christ of Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following was at the coming of the Lord, the vindication of the martyrs in AD 70. Now, in order to defeat that argument, ladies and gentlemen, you have to prove that there's no connection between Romans 11 and Isaiah 27 and 59. Or you have to show there's no connection between Romans 11 and Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following. Or you have to show that the coming of the Lord for the vindication of the martyrs in AD 70 is not the vindication of the martyrs of Isaiah 27 and Isaiah 59. You see, there's a whole list of possibilities that you would have to establish and prove beyond a shadow of a doubt for the argument to be invalid. I haven't found anyone that has even remotely been able to address those points and invalidate even one of them. Now, I suspect on YouTube, I suspect there's going to be a whole lot of yeah buts. Well, Don, you haven't answered this question over here, which is not related to the subject. The question would be, will my point-by-point syllogism be examined and addressed? I rather doubt it. Okay, so yesterday, we began the examination of Isaiah 27. We went back into chapter 26 to show that chapter 27 shows in that day. Well, the antecedent reference is to the resurrection, the coming of the Lord, for the vindication of the martyrs. And let's continue. It would be, as we demonstrated yesterday, at the time of the destruction of Leviathan. In that day, the Lord, with his mighty arm, terrible arm, with his great sword, will destroy Leviathan, that terrible serpent. Now, I shared with you yesterday that Paul said in Romans chapter 16, 20, that the crushing of Satan, the crushing of the head of Satan, was near when Paul wrote Romans, in AD 57. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot make Paul's statement, the God of peace shall crush Satan under your feet shortly. You cannot extrapolate that out into 2,000 years. The Greek term intakai is only used 7 or 8 times in the entirety of the New Testament. I said this yesterday. I will continue to say it. No one can refute it. Intakai is never, ever, ever used to indicate or to emphasize the rapidity of action versus the imminence of the action. Never. Now, I've had some people on Facebook say, oh, no, Preston, you're completely wrong on that. And their arguments were nothing but a word salad, a word soup that made no sense whatsoever. And they were self-contradictory. If you want to challenge that, feel free. but you have to have some good evidence. So Paul is unequivocally, undeniably, and explicitly saying that the destruction of Satan, the fulfillment of Isaiah 27, was imminent when he wrote in Romans chapter 16. But you see, ladies and gentlemen, the destruction of Satan is an intensely eschatological promise to speak of the end of the millennium. Let me say that again. There are all sorts of ideas out there, and I've had people say, Preston, the millennium is the death of full preterism. And now we've got a relatively new argument that says, the millennium began in AD 70. That's basically a brand new argument that's not been on the scene for very long at all. It doesn't bother me if it's a new argument. I don't really care if it's valid and true. Those who hold that position generally say, the millennium is unending. Not according to Revelation. According to Revelation, the millennium comes to an end at the great white throne judgment and the destruction of the devil. Now, since the destruction of the devil occurs at the end of the millennium, and since Paul said, Romans chapter 16:20, that the destruction of Satan was coming very soon, what does that tell us about the beginning of the end of the millennium? That tells us the end of the millennium was imminent when Paul wrote Romans chapter 16, when he wrote Romans. This is verified in Revelation chapter 12, in which you have a woman giving birth to the Son in the heavens, and Satan standing there hoping to devour the Son, seeking to kill the Son, failing. Then you had a war in heaven, and you had Satan and his angels being cast out. He was angry, and he went throughout all the earth seeking the seed of the woman, the multiple seed now, the followers of the Lamb. And he had great anger because he knows he has only a short while. A short while is not 2,000 years. Not in any definition of time. So we have Revelation telling us that the destruction of Satan was coming in a very little while. Satan was to be destroyed, according to Isaiah, at the coming of the Lord for the vindication of the martyrs. Well, what does Revelation tell us? The Lord was going to come in the judgment of Babylon, in the vindication of the martyrs, and the coming of the Lord in Revelation, Jesus said over and over again, "Behold, I come quickly." And John was told by the Father, who knew the day and the hour of that event, these things must shortly, in takai, come to pass. And the fulfillment of that coming of the Lord to avenge the blood of the martyrs, which is at the end of the millennium destruction of Satan, would not be very far off. How do I know that? Well, because it says he only has a short time, and because it says these things must shortly come to pass, and because Jesus said, "Behold, I come quickly," but there's something else. Have you ever noted that in Revelation chapter 22 and verse 10, John was told, "Do not seal the words of the prophecy of this book, because the time is at hand." The time has come. Now, notice the fact that the book of Revelation quotes from appeals to, reiterates the prophecies of Daniel, especially in Daniel chapter 12. Oh, in addition to chapter 2, chapter 7, chapter 9. So Daniel saw the vision of the end. Daniel saw the vision of the prophet, or of the resurrection. Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. He saw the prophecy, or was given the prophecy of the great tribulation. Revelation chapter 7, Revelation chapter 14. But Daniel was told, when given the vision of the great tribulation, the abomination of desolation, the resurrection, Daniel was told, Daniel, seal up the words of this vision, for it is many days to come. It's far off. You will die and rest with your fathers until the end of the days. What days? 1290, 1335. Whatever you want to make it. The resurrection would be at the end of the days, which is defined by the time when the power of the holy people was to be completely shattered. Daniel chapter 12, verse 7. Now watch. Daniel was told, given his vision of the resurrection, Daniel, seal up the vision. It's a long time off. It is not near. It's not coming soon. It's not shortly, and it's not at hand. Long time off. Now, it was approximately, I take the early dating of Daniel, obviously. Let's just round it off, okay? Round figures. It was 500 years from Daniel until John. That was called a long time. John reiterates the prophecies of Daniel, the prophecies of the resurrection, the abomination, the great tribulation, etc., the kingdom, the end of the age. But John was told, do not seal the words of this vision, because the time is at hand. The time has arrived. Now, look, ladies and gentlemen, when you try to say, well, God can't tell time. God doesn't talk in time like you and I do. Well, God talked in time when he told Daniel the fulfillment of his vision was a long time off, and that was 500 years from Daniel until John. Could God tell time? He said that was a long time. And that same God told John, don't seal the book because the time is at hand. God's talking in time. And that means that all of these arguments about time statements don't mean anything are absolutely, totally false. God can tell time very well, thank you very much. And he has always told time accurately and truthfully. And that means the destruction of Satan, as predicted in Isaiah 27, to take place at the time of the coming of the Lord for the vindication of the martyrs, which is the background for Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following, which is the background for the book of Revelation, the coming of the Lord, and the judgment of Babylon, where the Lord was slain, the city that had killed the prophets, the city that was killing the apostles and prophets of Jesus, the coming of the Lord and the judgment of Babylon to avenge the blood of the martyrs was at hand, coming shortly, soon, and quickly, and without delay. So if you try to take the book of Revelation and the fulfillment of Isaiah 26 and 27, if you try to put the fulfillment of Matthew 25, if you try to put the fulfillment of Romans chapter 11, 25 to 27, in fulfillment of Isaiah 27, if you try to put the fulfillment of Revelation into our future, you are violating what God said. You are contradicting what God said about when those events were to take place. And I am out of town. Hey, time. Don't forget, my 3 books. Elijah Has Come. One of the most in-depth examinations of Romans chapter 11 correlating it with Isaiah 27 and 59, etc. My book, 70 Weeks Are Determined for the Resurrection, again, discussing Isaiah 26 and 27, and my book, Temple to Telos, which is directly related to Isaiah chapter 27, as we shall see. If you purchase those separately, let me remind myself, and paid shipping, it would be $64.70. For the month of April 2023, U.S. orders only, total delivered price, $49.95. Fantastic savings. Hey, thanks for joining me for today's morning musings. Tomorrow we will continue our examination of Steve Gregg's book, Why Not Full Preterism. I'll see you there.